Hello, my name is Sheila McNeely, and I'm with the Knox County Master Gardeners, and I'm so glad you're joining us. We're going to be talking about seed starting, and the name of the presentation is called Don't Go Flat Broke. And there's a very good reason that we've named it that, is because I have a very dear friend who teased me for buying too many flats of flowers because that's what I like to do. And she said, why don't you try to grow your own flowers? And so that's how we got started, and that's how I started researching on how to plant seeds for myself, and it has been so much fun. So to start off with, you need to ask yourself, why would you want to start seeds or your plants from seeds in the first place? And there's a lot of good reasons. Now, my first one, I told you it's because I wanted to save money, but there's a whole lot of more things that you would want to do to start seeds. So the next thing is it's a very rewarding hobby. A lot of people do this, and it's more fun when you can talk to somebody else about what they're doing and how you're doing it, and it's a lot of fun that way. The other thing is when you go to big box stores, you only have so many cultivars to choose from. If you're starting from seeds, you have a lot more opportunity. And I have some of my seeds out here today to show you, just big picture, but at the box store, you can't find catnip easily, and definitely you can't find like the moonflower, and this is a new thing that my friend showed me, and it's a lot of fun to grow, and it's pretty easy to grow. Also, like gourds and things like that, you can't find that at the big box store. And zinnias, they don't like to be transplanted, so you'd have to start them from scratch yourself. So these are some really good things to start, because you get different cultivars, and your yard will look different than everybody else's. Now, another reason why you would do start your plants from seedlings is because you get a longer growing season, because you're starting them a little sooner than you would if you put them outside. You get a jump start on the blooms and the fun stuff. So, and this is just a lot of fun. So I have some really good things to tell you about today. And to start off, I'm going to try my best to stay on target. So we're going to have some objectives today. So the first one is starting seedlings indoors. So there's a lot of different things that you can plant from seedlings, and you can start almost anything indoors, but some things like to be started indoors. Some things prefer, you can start them indoors, but they don't like the transplant. So we're going to be talking about how to identify those things. And today I'm really talking about flowers, because this is what I really like to plant. But you can also apply this to vegetables. They're just a little different, a little more temperamental in some areas, but you can apply all of this stuff to vegetables also. Now, the next thing I want to teach you is how to read the instructions on a packet of seeds. Believe it or not, there's a lot of instructions and a lot of information that can be gained and gleaned from these little packets. And if you don't, some packets are better than others for information. This one has a beautiful picture on the front, but it doesn't have as much information on the back. So if you go to some of the seed catalogs, they have some really good information. So if you like something, but it doesn't give you any information, it doesn't mean you can't buy it, but you might want to do your research at home on the computer and find out from some really reputable sources about more information about your seedlings. Now, the other thing that we are going to cover is Seeds 101. We are starting the seeds. You know how you start bulbs, you force them inside, and you have to do special things to them to get them to come out before it's time for them to bloom. Well, we're doing the same thing with seeds. If you throw seeds outside, they'll grow. They still need their thing to grow. They need to be in the right place at the right time. But because we're starting them indoors, we're going to pay extra attention to the baby seeds because we want them to grow. That's the whole reason why we're doing this. So we're going to treat them like they're royalty, and we're going to do everything we can to make them grow. Now, the next thing we will need after we cover reading the seed packet is we're going to start with tools, some of the basic things that you're going to need. Now, again, we're trying to save money, so I'm not going to give you a whole bunch of really expensive things. These are just very down-to-earth things. It's not a lot that you need to get, but it's some good things to get started on the right foot when you're seedlings. And then we're going to, anytime you're doing anything with seeds and plants, things can go wrong. So it's better to get ahead of it than have to deal with it after it's happened. So I'm going to give you some tips on identifying problems with seedlings, and then we're going to try to remedy that before it starts. And then the last thing is, once your baby seeds are grown up, they're going to have to go outside. You can't keep them in with you all the time. You're going to need to set them out in the big broad world. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to start seedlings outdoors. Okay, so the very first thing is we need to pick our seeds. Now, I will tell you, at my I just moved, and so at my old house, I had nothing but shade. So I had to be I had to have in mind exactly what I wanted to plant that liked shade. Now, I could plant zinnias, and yes, I did plant zinnias, but were my zinnias happy? No, they weren't happy. They always got that powdery mildew because it wasn't the right place for this plant. So when you're planting or you're starting seedlings, you want to remember what you have to work with outside. Is it a sunny area? Is it a shady area? Is it a dry area? Is it a wet area? There's always seeds for that, but you need to be smart on how you pick out your seeds. Now, the next thing you need to do is you need to buy seeds from a reputable source. Now, don't be Jack with, the Jack and the beanstalk and buy seeds from just anybody. You want to make sure that they don't have seed like weed seeds in there, because we want to grow our plants. We don't want to grow weeds because everybody can grow weeds. We want to be special and grow something else. But also, if it's a reputable source, they know how to store seeds, and they won't try to sell you seeds that are like 5 years old or that haven't been kept properly, like in the right conditions to keep seeds. So you want to really start with a reputable a reputable dealer, but you can get these online. But just really pay attention to what you're purchasing. Now, the next thing we need to look at is the seed packet. There's a lot of information that you can get from the seed packet, and it has information on the front, it has information on the back, and I've got one of these right in here that has actually information on the inside. But now that's a surprise. You have to plant the seeds first before you can read this. But this is on nasturtium, and you can actually eat this, but now you have to read the instructions, because it tells you what you can eat and what you shouldn't eat. But sometimes it gives you the history of the plants, and this particular brand is called Botanical Interest. Now, there's a lot of good brands out there, but I like this one because it gives you so much information. And I'm still a beginning seed person too, so I like a little more information. So they have a really good catalog. You can go online and it'll give you some more information and help you. Plus, I like the pictures. Picture girl. So one of the things that it'll tell you on the front, and you can see what's highlighted in red, is it'll tell you if it is first of all, it'll tell you it's an annual or perennial. Now remember, annuals have to be planted every year, and perennials will come back year after year, most of the time, if they're in the right place at the right time, and right place, right plant, and also if you make sure it's the right growing zone for you. You can't expect something to grow if it's not supposed to be here. But this little box here tells you how tall it's going to be, and it also tells you if it needs full sun or partial sun. Now, there's something that you need to remember about sun. Shade is less than 6 hours. It is like maybe 2 to 4 hours, but light shade is about 6 hours. So that means anything that's got more than 6 hours shade of sun is full sun. All right, the next thing that you can look at is on the back. It tells you every seed. It's kind of like people. They have their place where they like it, and they have, there's places they like and places they don't like. On the back of this particular package, and it's on a lot of packages, it'll tell you that you can sow the seed outside, or you can plant it or start it indoors. Some seeds like to be started indoors, and some only like to be started outdoors. Now, a zinnia, for example, it is a very easy seed to start, but it doesn't like to be transplanted. So you can start it, and it's a great seed to start for like children when you want to, go through science and show them how to seeds to start. But it doesn't like to be transplanted. It likes to be sown directly outside. But your seed packet will tell you what it prefers, and it also tells you when to start the seed. So if you start it outside, you really need to wait until after the first frost, if that's what the directions say. Sometimes it says plants 2 to 4 weeks before the first frost. If you're planting indoors, it will also give you that information too, and it'll base it on the typical average last day of frost. Now in Knoxville, the average last day of frost is April the 15th. But now that is if you're going to take your chances, because sometimes it frosts after April the 15th. So if you're a little bit more, if you really want to play it risky, April the 15th. But if you want to be a little safer, April the 23rd-ish. And if you want to be super safe, May the 1st. The thing is, it's better not to rush some things, because you've gone to all this work, and if you put them out and it's too soon and they get frosted, then you've got some frozen vegetables, and that's not very good. So the other thing that you'll want to note on this is if it wants to be planted indoor or outdoor, but also you can find things, cultivars that are deer resistant, and the package should tell you, or also if it's mildew resistant. And these zinnias should be mildew resistant, but on the package it says deer resistant right there. So you can see that. And see at the bottom it says zinnias do not benefit from being planted early and wait for warmer weather, especially if you're going to do it outside. So now these are two other cultivars that you can see. It's got Cosmos and Mexican sunflower. So if you look at the part that's getting ready to be highlighted in red, this one says deer resistant, and this is the Mexican sunflower. So now I'm having to deal with deer at my new house, and I get sunshine, but I get deer too. So I am going to want to definitely pay more attention to things that are deer resistant. Now on the next thing, it shows these are two different plants, the Cosmos and the Mexican sunflower. They have different likes. The Cosmos, do you see after it says when to sow outdoors, it says recommended to sow outdoors. It doesn't, so obviously it doesn't like to be transplanted. It wants to be started and continue growing in the same area. On the opposite end are the Mexican sunflowers. They like to be started early, but also I think it has to do with the growing season, because I did start some and they didn't bloom until like the end of August. Well, if I had started indoors, I could have gotten to start blooming a little bit earlier. And these babies, they grow 4 to 6 feet tall. So these would be great to start indoors. And then when they get a couple of inches tall, then you can send them on outside. But I'll tell you exactly when you need to start looking at sending them outside in a little bit. From now. Now these are two other things, lavender and sweet pea. Now, so we just talked about where they like to be grown, and so you can look at the back and it says where to sow outside, or when to sow outside, when to sow inside. But there's some other things in here that you need to be paying attention to. Some seeds, now remember, we're taking care of them like Mother Nature would take care of them outside, so we're going to do a little bit extra to get them happy to grow. So there's two different things I need to tell you about. It's called stratification and scarification. So stratification is, think of cold. When you have a seed outside, it goes through the winter and it gets cold. And then when it gets warm, it's like, ooh, time to wake up. I'm going to get woken up. So on the seed packet, it will tell you, just like this one does on the lavender, it says that it wants stratification. Now there's the seed packet, at least on these botanical interests, it does tell you how to do the stratification, but there's a general way to do it, and that would be to take a paper towel, get it wet, moist, and not too moist, but moist, and it shouldn't be soaking wet anyways. It's going to be moist, and then you're going to take the little tiny seeds and you're going to put them in here in the middle of your paper towel. You'll close it, you'll put it back in the Ziploc bag, and then you're going to put it in the refrigerator, and it'll tell you how many weeks to put it in or how many months. So that's another reason why you need to read the directions first. And there was a couple of things like sweet pea, you're supposed to start it in the fall. Well, I got my seeds in the spring, and it's like, oops, I'm out this year. I'm going to have to wait till next year. So you need to start paying attention to those kind of things, how long it needs to be, go through the stratification. Now, another thing is scarification. So if you think about a scar, that would be like a scratch, like a kitty cat scratched you. Well, scarification is the seeds have a little seed coat on it. Now, this is no, it's a little bit hard for you to see, but this right here is a moonflower seed. And they're kind of hard. They have a very hard seed coat. Well, there's a couple of ways that you can scarify. And scarify is you're breaking that seed coat so that it can start growing. Now, why would you need to break it? Well, it's because it's not outside, so it's not going through the regular things that happen outside. So you're going to kind of you're going to preempt that and do something different. So you can take a pair of nail clippers and you can just barely clip it, and you'll clip the seed skin on there, or you can take a emery board like a fingernail file and you can file it. But there's a couple of things that you need to know is on the seed, and this particular seed, it has a top and a bottom, and the bottom is called the radicle, and you do not want to cut that. You want to kind of cut it on the side because you're cutting its little foot off. That's where the root comes out. So you don't want to do that. You want to cut it on the side. Now, this is a better way to think of it. I think everybody knows what these are. This is a black walnut, and a black walnut, you can see it is so hard, and you think that has got to go through scarification to get it open. So if it was outside, it would get wet, and it would freeze, and it would pop open, or you would have a squirrel, and a squirrel would gnaw on it, and it would open it up. So those are the ways it gets it So if we're going to go around that process, that's why you need the nail clippers or the fingernail file. But the other thing that is even easier is on the moonflower and some other things, it says that you can soak the seeds for 24 to 48 hours, and that loosens that seed skin off, and then you can cut through it. Okay. So now, is it time to plant our seeds? No, it's not time to plant our seeds. There's some more information I need to tell you. Now, because we're treating these seeds like royalty, we need to make sure that we have Seeds 101. We need to know what seeds like. Well, seeds like, in order for them to germinate, they have to have moisture and heat. They don't have to have light yet. They have to have moisture and heat. So, if you were going to store seeds, you want them not to have moisture and no heat. So this is a good time for me to tell you how to store seeds. It's best if you just buy seeds for the year and not store them, but you can. And if you do, you would put them like in a Tupperware or a Ziploc bag, and then maybe put a silicate package in so that it keeps the moisture out. And this is like what you get in shoes and stuff like that. And you just put that in there. And then these do not have to go in the refrigerator. They just need to go in a cool place. Your house is probably a cool place. It doesn't need to go in a hot place, and it doesn't need to go in the freezer. It's just in a nice spot, but not anything over the top. Now, the seeds to germinate, they need the warmth and the moisture. But in order for them to start growing, that's when they need light and airflow. And so we'll talk about airflow too, because it's kind of funny, but they need those all four things. But when they start growing, they really need that light, and we'll be talking about that in a little bit also. Okay, so we've talked about the seeds. Now we're going to talk about the things that you need to start with your seeds. One of the things that you need is you need to have the seed starting medium. This is a seed starting mix, and this is really good. It's not very expensive because remember, we're trying to do it on a budget, and this was only a little under, it was under $5, and I just got this at a big box store, but this is specifically, it says seed starting mix. Now, the reason why it's very important is seeds, remember, they're babies. They could drown. So you don't want to get like potting soil, because potting soil, it's fabulous for plants that are already mature because they can handle their water. But these babies, they can't. The potting soil, it retains too much water. So when they're starting, they want to stay moist, but they don't want to be soaked. So this is absolutely perfect for them, and it's been designed just for seed starting. So the other thing you're going to need is clean containers, and I've got some clean containers here. One of the things that you want to do is you can use containers from year to year, or you can use things like, this is a salad, something that I had put a salad in, and you can cover it up, but you need to clean them. Remember, we're taking care of these little seedlings, and we're going to go over and above to keep them from getting diseases. So you're going to clean it with warm soapy water. Anything that you use in it, whether it's a food like you're going to use like the salad thing, or like a yogurt cup or something like that, you want to clean it with warm soapy water. And then the next thing is it would be best if you cleaned it in a mixture of Clorox and water, and that's to kill the germs. So it would be like 1 part Clorox to 9 parts water, and you just put it in a bucket, and you dunk these things in, and if you have a room to let it soak, but if not, it's like washing dishes. This will kill the germs, and then it's the best to put them out in the sun and let them dry. Now, another thing that I learned recently that I had never thought about before is I will use this again next year, but I would probably wash it up before I put it away. Well, it could get germs over the winter, or bacteria or fungus or whatever. So it's best to wash it right before you're using it. So always keep that in mind. You can put it away clean, but you really want to disinfect it right before you plant your little seeds. Now, I'm going to use this little thing as an example, and this is the thing that I got a salad out of. So we're going to start with newspaper, and we are going to take some newspaper, and we're going to cut it so it fits perfectly in this right here. And we are going to use regular newspaper, and one of the things I need to tell you is this right here, this piece, this is the advertising part. It has ink on it, and little seedlings do not like this ink. It's just not good for them. And so if you would discard this, don't use this part, but just use the regular newspaper, and you're going to cut about 11 to 12 layers, and they're just going to be like this, and we're going to pour water in that, and this is going to be the start of our hydrosphere. Now, little plants, I'll have to tell you, they do not like to be watered from the top. They want to be watered from the bottom. So that's why we're going to start with the bottom up. And little seedlings, if you water them from the top, you could dislodge them. They could go floating around, or they could set up for disease. We just want to start the best way we can. And this is what is proven to be the best way. Now you're going to take water, and this right here is water that I have in a jug, and it's just it's a used jug. And water, when it comes from the tap, it has lots of fun things in it because it's good for us. It has things to keep the germs out. It has fluoride for your teeth and all sorts of things. If you put it in a container like this and leave it for 24 to 48 hours, it's called off-gassed water. And then plants like it. You know why they like it? Because they don't have teeth and they don't need fluoride. So we're going to put water in here, and you're not going to put a lot of water, but you're going to put water, and I'm not going to do it right now because you won't be able to see it, but you're going to pour water in here, this off-gas water, and you're going to roll it around like you're panning for gold. But the goal is you want all of the layers wet. And then after you know all the layers are wet, it's going to be like a sponge, and it's going to be really good. And then, but if you have a lot of extra water, just pour it off. You don't need it, but you're going to start with this wet right here. After you do that, we're going to prepare the soil, and we're going to prepare the soil, and I'm going to show you how to do that. I like to put it in a little Tupperware like this, and this is not an expensive thing, and you probably have something at home. You could do it in a bowl, and I'm just going to barely show you. When it comes out of the bag, it's very dry because it's sanitized, and it's perfect for little baby seedlings. But you're going to put it in here, and then you're going to take some off-gassed water, and you're going to start mixing. You're going to what we need to do is add a little bit at a time, because it's just like a cake. If you get too much moisture in it, you're going to have to add more flour. So it's best if you just add a little bit at a time. Once you get it mixed up, and I've actually already mixed this up, you're going to take it in your hand, and you're going to squeeze it really hard. And if you get a little drop of water out, that means it's the perfect medium, and it'll stick together. Do you see how this is kind of sticking together? That means it's good. If you can't squeeze a drop out, add a little bit more. If you get too much and you can squeeze like 5 or 6 drops out, it's too wet and you don't want to start it. Start your little seedlings off like that. Now I will tell you that when you put this right here is going to be moist, and then this where you started with the newspaper, it's moist too, but it's going to be wetter than your soil. Where you're going to start a capillary action. And if you can remember from school, it's like a sponge. A sponge, this is my handy dandy example sponge. When a sponge is dry, it doesn't pick up any water because it picks up very little. But if you have a damp sponge, it'll pick up a lot more because the capillary action is pulling it from the wettest spot up to the more dry spot. Well, that's what you want to do. Is if we set up some kind of system where the capillary action comes from the really wet part down here through the moist but not too moist soil, then your little seeds are going to get the moisture that they need to start growing, because what do they need? Moisture and warmth. So the next thing we're going to do is a seed. This is called a seed cell, and I like these seed cells because they're just like the perfect size. I have some that are just a little bit bigger. You can see they're just but I think it's just a matter of preference. I think I just kind of like this. But when you fill the seed cell up, you want to fill it almost to the top, not overflowing, but almost to the top. And then you're going to tap it down, tap, 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 tap. You don't want an air pocket in there, because if you do, it's kind of like a straw that's been broken. The capillary action won't happen. It can't suck up any water. So this is an example, and I think you might be able to see it. This is just a cup, and it has dirt at the soil at the bottom. Then I put some saran wrap in the middle, and then I put some soil at the top. But you can see that the seed, I plant the seed at the top, but there's no way it's going to be able to get any water from the bottom because there's an air pocket. Well, the same thing goes for this. You don't want an air pocket. You just want to tap it down, and then the water, because the capillary action happens, the water will come up from the bottom, and our little plants will stay moist all the time. Okay, now it's time to start the seeds. It's time to plant the seeds, and when I do that, I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to measure and find out exactly what the seed packet says. So if it says 1/4 of an inch, I'm going to measure a spot on my pencil, and I know it's going to be 1/4 of an inch, or if it's 1/2 an inch. It's usually, on flowers, it's not much deeper than that, but you want to stick to what it says on the seed packet, because The little seeds are like little MREs, meals ready to eat, and they only have enough food to get up to the top. They put their little roots down and then they start up, and the cotyledon once it comes out, it's pretty much done with all of its food in the seed. It's done all it can, and then that's when it starts the photosynthesis. But if you plant it too deep, it won't make it to the top, and then it's going to die because it won't get any more food. So when you plant your seed, I use the pencil and I make a little hole, and I like to put 3 holes in my seed cell because it increases the chances of the seed to come up, and I don't want to do all this work and nothing come up, so I put 3. There's one bad drawback. It's because when they all 3 come up and they all look beautiful, you have to decide which one you're going to keep, and that is a hard job, but you have to do it. It's something that you have to do as a plant owner. So you have to take a pair of scissors. Don't take a pair of tweezers and pull them up because all their little roots are all tangled up in there together. So you want to have to cut it. So you just cut the 2, like if you had 3, you'd have to cut 2 out and let the 3rd one grow, and he'll do just fine. But don't ever pull them out because you're going to damage the roots, and then you're in trouble. So after you plant that, you're going to put it, so pretend like this seed cell is done. It's packed. You're going to put the top on, and it's going to create a terrarium. So you're going to start getting water at the top, just like a terrarium back from when you were in school. And that's how the plant's going to start, and you're going to put it away someplace. It doesn't have to be sunshiny. It just needs to be a place that's warm, because what do seeds need to have? Warmth and moisture in order to germinate. So I have an example here of my plant that is started, and you can see that it is here, and I will hold this up for you. You can see that there's water at the top. See, and no, you can't see me very well, but there's water that's collected at the top, and that means you're doing something right. It means that the capillary action is working, and it is just perfect little terrarium. You might, if it's a long germination time, like it takes 10-15 days, you have to check the water and make sure that your newspaper is staying wet. You can always take one of these seed packets out, add a little bit extra water. Also, if you notice that the top is super dry, which it shouldn't be, but if it is, you need to take this off-gas water in just a little spritzer, and you just spritz the top just lightly, because you don't want to blast these little babies away, and then you just put this back on. Now, in this particular thing, and I will tell you, I want to forget what I've done, and I always plant multiple seeds. It's good to have little markers that tell you what you've, and these are not very expensive, or you can use popsicle sticks, but mark what you've planted, because you will forget, like me. Maybe not as fast as I forget, but you will still forget. But it's good to mark them. So we started our seeds. We've done all this stuff. I'm just ahead of myself here. Now we have to just wait. Now, as you can see from this next picture, this little seed, it shows you the different stages. So you can see the seed is just, it starts growing from the bottom, and then it shoots up at the top. As soon as you see the green at the top, that's the time that you take this lid off. And you don't need the lid anymore. So whatever lid, now you can also use saran wrap if you don't have one of these lids, but you can get these lids and these, all of this stuff at a big box store or at your local seed place. You can get these things, and they'll be glad to help you. But this will be put away, and then all you'll need is this. Now, what did I tell you after we want our plants to grow? Then you need light and airflow. So that's the next thing we're going to talk about. But one thing I will tell you is once the plant's up, remember it has a little picnic basket of food, and that's how it gets up and out of the ground. After that, it's pretty much used up all its food, so you're going to have to think about fertilizing. And when you fertilize a plant, he needs food, and he's a baby, so you've got to be really careful. They can't have anything very strong. So you're going to get a fertilizer that is, this particular thing is fish emulsion, and I really like it, and so do my cats. But it is a 511. But whatever fertilizer you use, you really need to read the directions, see if it's for seedlings. But if it's for seedlings, because they're babies, you're only going to use half strength. So this is a gallon of water. This, I think, as I recall, is a tablespoon to a gallon of water. Well, if I'm using seedlings, I would use a half a tablespoon to a gallon of water. And again, I would use the off-gas water. Still, you're treating these little seedlings with kid gloves, and you're going to take the best care of them as possible. Now, we need light, And as you can see in this picture, the light is really close to the plants, and there's a good reason for that. We want the plants to grow, we don't want them to grow all spindly. We want them to be thick, short, and stocky, and just really pretty. If you keep the light close to them, they're gonna be beautiful. So there's two different things that you can use, and you can use fluorescent or LED. And I'm going to step over here and show you that the LED, this is an LED light, and my fabulous friend let me borrow this for the example, but you're going to keep, LEDs are a little bit different, so you need to do your research. I use the fluorescent, but for this example, it's perfect here. But you're going to put the lights just about 2 to 3 inches, 4 to 6 inches, depends on, 2 to 3 inches on fluorescent lights, and you're going to keep them close. As your plants get bigger, what are you going to do? Lift this up. So you're always going to keep them 2 to 3 inches above the plants, and that will keep them healthy and happy. Now, a lot of people want to put their seedlings in front of a window, and that is a really good idea, but not. It's good on paper, but the plants don't like it. Your windows, as much, you don't think about it, but they have a lot of things in them to keep all the UV lights and things like that out. So plants like UV light, so they like that stuff, the strong stuff that the sun puts out. So that is blocked by our windows. So you will see some leggy plants if you put them by the windows. So it's best to have some your plant lighting for that. And so I like fluorescent, and there's some really good options for that. Now, here's an example of a healthy plant, and that is our goal: stocky, leafy, and green. On the right is a plant that's exactly like it. These are peppers, and you can see that that's not a healthy plant. Now, I'm going to give you some examples. Now, after I just told you about lighting, what's wrong with this plant? This little seedling is not getting enough light, and you can see in the background that that is a light, that's a window that they're close to. So they're going to lean toward the window, and they're just going to be stretching trying to get that light. They're just not getting enough, and that's why they're going to be leggy. They will probably not do good when you go outside because they're going to be so leggy, they're going to fall over when you plant them. So we want to avoid that by keeping the light close to the seedlings as they're coming up and growing. Now, this is another problem that plants have, and this is called damping off. And this is when a plant gets a bacteria that, and it cannot survive. Once it hits, and the whole tray of plants will go just like that. They'll be beautiful one day and bad the next. It's too much moisture. It's like 85% and more. So plants need light, but remember I also said they need airflow. They need airflow. So one of the really easy ways to get the airflow in the room is to have a small fan in your room. Don't ever put the fan directly over the plant, because it's a baby plant. You wouldn't do that, but you're going to have indirect air blowing on it. So if my plants are right here, I might have the fan blowing on this wall where it comes back and hits this. So it's starting to get airflow. This also helps the plants be stronger. Plants that are outside, they're strong because they're all constantly being blown by the wind, so their little stems get acclimated to the wind, and they're a little bit stronger. In the indoor, they're treated like royalty, so they don't get any airflow. So it's good to just go ahead and get them used to being outside. So this not only cuts down on the moisture from like little bacteria, it keeps the moisture from the top because we want the water to be coming up, but it also makes the plant stronger. So I thought that was a really great thing that I learned from one of my research papers that I read. Now, this is a picture of a marigold, and the problem with this one is look at the roots on it. It's overgrown its pot. So that's another reason why you don't want to start your plants too early, because once you get them going and they look beautiful, you're not going to want to put them out if it's going to frost, but you run the risk of them getting overgrown. So remember, roots are supposed to go down, but not around and up and over. And see, these have made almost a pot in themselves of the roots. So this is not the healthiest plant. I mean, it's pretty, but he's going to have a hard time being transplanted. He's probably going to go through some shock. Now, after you have your plants and they're ready to grow, they're grown up and they're ready to go out, it's time to put them out. But it's like, how do I know when they're time to go out? Well, plants, their leaves will tell you when it's time to go out. So when they have the cotyledons, those are the first little leaves, and they kind of look like little paddles, or at least on this marigold, they look like little paddles. The next leaf is called the true leaf, and it actually looks like a marigold leaf. When it gets the second set of true leaves on it, that's when it's time to go outside. And your little baby's grown up, and now it's time to face the real world. So now there's some tips on how to do that. Remember, we talked about the frost, so we don't really want to put it out when it's going to frost, because there goes all your hard work. So April the 15th is our average frost date for our last frost date for Knoxville. If you want to be a little safer, April like the 23rd, that kind of, and then, or May the 1st is when you're being really safe. But you can put it out anytime. But I think I would do my research before I did it. But in order to put them out, you've been taking care of them. They've been like royalty, and then you've got to get them prepared for the big wide world out there. So it's called Harden Off. And that's where you prepare the plants to go outside. So you're going to take them outside, and it's going to take about a week, and you're going to take them out for little visits outside. And you're not going to put them in the direct sunlight, because even sitting out on your porch, you are going to, with a cover, you're going to get a lot more sun than you get inside with a fluorescent light. So you're going to acclimate them slowly to the great outdoors. The other thing that you're going to check is soil temperature and air temperature. I just heard recently, like yesterday or the day before, that in March we get some really cold, warm temperatures, because like right now, today, it's really warm. But then we're going to have some really cold days where it's going to zip down back to the 30s and 40s, and our soil temperature is going to still be cold. So it's always going up and down to that in the spring here in Knoxville. So it's good to check your soil temperature, not just your air temperature, because it's going to be a beautiful day, but you need to check the soil just to make sure. This is more important for vegetables. I'm really talking about flowers, but vegetables are a lot more finicky in temperature. They like it just right. So you'll have to pay more attention to that, but read your seed packet, because it'll tell you what you need to do. Now, when it's time to plant your plants, after you've been hardening them off for about a week, then you're going to plant them on a cloudy day. That just helps them acclimate a little bit better, because the sun is going to be a lot for them, and so you're just kind of getting used to it. The other thing is you could plant them late in the afternoon, like late in the day. That would help too. And then you're going to water them well. When you plant this plant, you're going to plant them at the same height as what you planted them in the seed packet, the seed cell, or this little cell right here. You're not going to put them below, because that would set up for that pocket, and then they could get germs or bacteria growing down there. And you're not going to put them up high, because then the soil will wash away as they're watered later. And then I think we've covered it all. So let's just go back over it one more time. When you pick your seeds, pick them wisely, grow the flowers that you love, but you want to make sure you get the right plant at the right place. And then you want to gather all your tools together, and prepare before you ever start, and make sure you read the seed packet and read the seed packet again. And then you're going to try to prevent any problems that you could possibly have. Like, just stay ahead of it. Don't try to deal with the problem after it happens. Stay ahead of it. If you know that plants need to be watered from the bottom, they can't be too moist, and you want to keep airflow, stay ahead of it rather than have a problem. And then when you finally have your seeds, the seedlings up, and they're ready to go outside, you're going to have to harden them off and get them ready for the great wide world. And then I think you're going to be ready for seed starting, and you're going to have a beautiful flower garden just like the one on the picture. At least that's what I want. That's not my house. I wish it was. But also, there's like 1,000 more things I want to tell you, but I'm going to keep it to right here. If you have more questions, you definitely can call the Extension Service Office, and the telephone number's up on the screen for you, and you can call them, and they are so nice. They'll help you and walk you through it, and you are going to have the best time. Planting seeds has been so much fun, and I've had a lot of fun doing it and sharing it with friends. So thanks so much for coming today, and happy seed starting.